Hello, America, and to our friends around the world, welcome to the Common Sense Show. We are the show that is freeing America one enslaved mind at a time. Thank you so much for joining us. Really good to be with you. Hey, we need to lay cards on the table. I have talked around these issues for years, and I'm going to speak more directly about some interesting developments. And I'll do it superficially because it's so voluminous. But if you take in what I'm telling you, and you process it and you look at it and you say, I can see why we're headed towards the end days. It's pretty interesting stuff. I've made some notes on my phone I'm going to highlight. I've sent it out because you don't want to hold this information solely on your own because there are 10 dead and or missing scientists connected to plasma fields, time dilation, anti-gravity. Yes, time dilation means time travel. Extra dimensional portals. This is not science fiction. I'm not here to, let's put it this way. I've known a lot of this stuff for 40 years. I've known more of this stuff starting in 1997 when we used to have think tank meetings at Bill Pollock's place in La Positas, New Mexico, with high profile people, scientists, astronauts, government officials. There is an awareness of what I'm talking about here. There is a definitive awareness. And my pastor, and I've said this a few times now, a very reasonable person, very methodical, stair step his way through progressive logic. I've seen his thought processes. He's not given to wild fanaticism, fantasy thinking. And he has said multiple times, we are in the end days. I have to concur. I still think it's possible that if we change our consciousness, i.e., our spirituality, we can alter the timeline. But it's possible time has run out. And I'll talk about computer simulations that have been done to talk about why I think it might be too late. But I don't think we should give up. Anyway, you know who I am, you know what we do here, and we defend God, family, country. And this is really in the God part. And it does affect your family, and it certainly affects our country. But we are in a spiritual war right now of unbelievable proportions. And some people will hear this and say, Dave just lost his mind. He spoke eloquently and factually about how Caitlin Clark is being abused and for what reasons. Oh, it made so much sense. And then I talked about other things, recently and logically presented, but certainly realm of possibility stuff, some of it very well proven. This, I believe, is proven to people who've been in the middle of it. And I've, for good or really, I look at whether or not this was really wise for me to be in it, but I was thrust into it. But if you've been associated with it, you will recognize the truth of what I'm saying. And I know I will hear from people that have ancillary information or maybe even full information who will say, yeah, Dave, I've been kind of waiting for you to come out with this. And I'm making that prediction and we'll see it. And I'm looking forward to those comments. For some of you, cognitive dissonance will kick in. And I'm not being critical because some what I'm going to tell you is so revolutionary, even though it's rooted in quantum physics. I'm just telling you right now, there is a war going on the planet. And I don't mean Iran, China, US, Ukraine, Russia. I'm not talking about that war. I'm talking about a more profound, ubiquitous war that's everywhere and anywhere. And we're about ready to feel the full brunt of this. And we have some very, let's say, satanically inspired people that are seeking to change reality and attack humanity. And the details for me about the who, what, where, I know ultimately it goes back to Satan as far as your chain of command. That's arguable. But what's going on is not arguable. And I've been exposed to it every step of the way. Some of it had to be anecdotal, historical from people that knew because I wasn't old enough. But I've been involved in this pretty significantly since 1997. So we're working on almost 30 years now. And I said many times that physics is my hobby. Psychology, coaching basketball, being a therapist, that was my profession. This is my hobby. And probably if I had it to do over again, I'm at that critical age of 18, and where am I going to go? It probably would have been down this path, but maybe it's a good thing I didn't because I don't want to end up like those missing and or dead scientists. And today, anyone who is in the way of what's coming is a target. And it's hard to wake the masses up. And I've really debated whether or not this was the wisest thing to present. But nonetheless, we're going to do it. I'm going to introduce you to someone here. And she is oh, very well educated, very reasoned, and very much under fire. And I think had she not gone public, she wouldn't be here. Her name is Dr. Astrid Steckelberger, and she's had affiliation, third party blending into first party affiliation with CERN. And what she has to say is really interesting. And I'm going to say this too before we go to our first break. CERN around the perimeter has a multitude of satanic images. The occult is omnipresent. And there's been lots of shows done on this, so I don't feel I need to go back and give you the vivid details. They're there for you. All you got to do is go to AI or go to Google search engine, put that in, and you'll have plenty of proof. And these images are not coincidental. They're showing you what army they're in, the people that are running these facilities. So whether it's the Hebron Collider or CERN, and to some degree NASA, doesn't matter. It's all the same. Anyway, we're brought to you by a product everyone needs to have, especially since we're on the edge in the next 30 to 50 days, the edge of supply chain issues. This is the Nanosoma liquid spray. Saved my life. Restored lung capacity, not because it fixed anything. This doesn't fix anything. It boosts your immune system where you do your own work. And I got the immune system boost I needed. And against all negative prognosis medically, I'm better than I've been in 25 years. You can be too. All you got to do to find out more and see how it works, go to iwantmyhealthback.com/Dave Hodges. iwantmyhealthback.com/Dave Hodges. I'm not going to play the tape because Dr. Stuckelberger does have a pretty strong accent. Her English is really good. Command of English is impressive. And probably where she lives, she also speaks French and German as well. Um, but I want to go through what she had to say. And so I put together schematics here that will lead to what I'm going to reveal to you. And the real revelation is what I'm going to say. This is supportive from someone who's in an official capacity whose work serves to support what I'm going to tell you. Dr. Astrid Stuckelberger is a Swiss public health scientist, researcher, author, and former collaborator with groups like the WHO, UN, Swiss federal agencies, and CERN. She's done a lot of work in aging longevity, global health policy. She's held academic positions at the University of Geneva and other universities. She gained wide attention during COVID-19. She was very critical of some of the medical practices That kind of put her on the bad side. More recently, she's been prominent in what is referred to as alternative media circles. Excuse me. The alternative is killing the mainstream media. I alone outdraw a combination of Fox and CNN on a monthly basis. I'm not bragging. It just shows you people aren't listening to that crap. So don't give me this alternative nonsense when I pulled up this info about her. Okay, she has made claims about CERN, including alleged portals, extra dimensions, non-human entities, I'll say more bluntly, satanic entities, whistleblower accounts from inside the facility. These stories and interviews where she relays conversations with CERN scientists about multidimensional experiments. And you can find this at what's called Unagi Academia and Reddit. Okay, now, recent activity. She's appeared in multiple podcasts in the last year and a half discussing CERN, UAPs, extra dimensions, and related topics like the UAP Files podcast in July of 2025. Okay, so she's very, very, very active now. And it's interesting because a lot of people fear for her safety. Let's get down to her core claims. Her statements circulating from 2022 onward and gets repeated voluminously in 2024 and 2026. Here's what she says. She narrows this down to, I believe, what, about five or six uh, statements here. There's a mysterious portal or opening, like a door, beneath the CERN facility in which non-human beings, interdimensional entities, enter and exit. She claims scientists have detected or observed these beings coming and going. And that's documented on Reddit. Next one comes from Facebook. Dimensional experiments. CERN is involved in far more than standard high energy physics. Experiments reportedly access 17 or more hidden dimensions. This should not surprise anybody. If you just look at the work of, I think, the most prominent physicist in America, Dr. Michio Kaku of New York University, he wrote a book called Superstring Theory, 26 Dimensions Proven Mathematically. And he goes through in painstaking detail and lays this out. So this is almost like a subset of his work. She said these dimensions go beyond the standard three spatial and one time frame. This ties into theoretical physics like string theory, as I just mentioned, or extra dimensions. She frames it as active experimentation with reality altering implications, such as changing time and something, quote, is wrong with reality. A lot of people report, Art Bell first talked about this on his show, the quickening. Time is speeding up. There's just not the time to do the things I used to be able to get done easily. And we're not talking age-related factors. And a lot of you will nod your head and say, yeah, I feel that too. We all do. And we allegedly, and I'm going to digress for a minute, had a Mandela effect based on an electromagnetic experiment in 2012 coming out of CERN. And the Mandela effect means we have memories for things that never happened. And a lot of people are affected by this. It gets no media coverage, yet I have read this over and over and over. Scientific journals that are rejected for publication, despite the fact they're peer reviewed, have addressed this issue, and it caught my attention. Now, this isn't my main focus here. I do a lot of geopolitics because I'm concerned that we have Christian principles running this country. I said principles. You can be of a different religion, but we're talking about thou shalt not steal. Thou shalt not murder. Honor thy father and mother. This is the kind of thing I'm talking about here. Um, that's been my focus, God, family, country. But as I said, this is my passionate hobby, which is physics. And Dr. Stuckelberger is speaking my language here. This is stuff I have known about for decades. And it's so nice to see someone of credibility speaking forcefully to this. All right, let's get into encounters and evidence. Whistleblowers and scientists describe encounters with non-human entities during experiments. I will absolutely address this with information that I have already revealed through people I know, people who I have both a personal and a professional relationship with. This is not controversial. This has been proven beyond a shadow of a doubt. Yet it's presented in your mainstream media as wild-eyed fringe theory conspiracy nutcase people. Okay, well, we'll let you be the judge when I start revealing who's saying what. Encounters and evidence. Okay. In one account, an entity reportedly left behind a physical object, such as proof. Another anecdote involves an entity interacting with something mundane like a scarf. Okay, well, are we talking ghosts? This is where people's minds, poltergeist, will we revert to that? I think it might all be related. I think the physics is related, but whether or not they're the same entities, I'm telling you right now, the fact that CERN is inundated with satanic symbology is not an accident. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to make that linkage. Secret nuclear program. CERN is engaged in a secret nuclear program or radionuclear research, which potentially dangerous interdimensional effects can take place. CERN's full name is the European Organization for Nuclear Research. So the nuclear aspect refers to particle physics involving high energies, not necessarily weapons. So we know about the collider stuff that they do, right? Particles approaching near the speed of light, and boom, they call. I mean, we had a fit. At least I was one of those people back in about 2011 when they announced they were going to do these experiments. And I said, they could create a gigantic black hole, but we're just gone. That was a real possibility. Okay, broader implications. Some interviews link this to spiritual demonic themes. I don't link it. I think the evidence is omnipresent. The Mandela effect, as I just mentioned, reality shifts or warnings about tampering with fundamental forces. And she's expressed concern about the risks to our reality. Okay, now, they tell you where you can go and find her. All you got to do is just do a basic search. Um, This is, I'm looking at criticisms of her work right now. And, if I can't argue with you intellectually, I'm just going to basically dehumanize you by calling you names, insulting your character, your integrity, casting doubt on who you really are. And that's what she's been facing here. Listen, I'm telling you, she's lucky she's not the 11th scientist. Um, there's, I've been saying this for years. I mean, I've been trying to get people to pay attention to it. There's more to CERN than we realize, but let me pull up something here, okay? So now I'm going to give you my part of this through my brief rendition background. And hopefully that didn't disappear on me as I created this. I can recapitulate it in my mind, but it's a lot better if I proceed progressively here. And let me, as I scroll through here, boy, interesting stuff. Here it is. I'm not going to read the first part because Sarah and I just did up in Vegas with Scotty Sachs. We did a commercial for Health Systems Energy called EE Systems, and you're gonna be hearing a lot about that from me later on. And there are enemies that come out of the CERN satanic mentality that are trying to mess with this, trying to keep the average person from accessing this technology. And I'm going to leave it at that with that part. Okay. All right, here we go. These projects started with Project Looking Glass. By the way, those were Stargate attempts, time travel attempts, bilocation, teleportation. Then it went to HARP, and they learned and all kinds of patents. And Congressman Nick Begich covered this in detail in his book, Angels Don't Play This HARP, HAARP. And he had dozens of pages with the patents that could do technology like move the ionosphere, beam electric beams up, and like a Billard side shot in a pool table, comes back to Earth, hits a fault line, boom, you get an earthquake. Or you move weather front by moving the ionosphere the same way, and you initiate violent fronts moving into each other, and you get hurricanes, violent tornadoes, and so forth. And, baseball-sized hail, watermelon-sized hail. The weird weather we're having is a feature of this, and not other things you're being told. Then you get into you go from HARP to Hebron Collider, Texas, to CERN, to various portals bringing in demonic entities. And do I think this is true? And there was a time when I really had to say, Dave, you're getting good info, but could you really believe this? Really? Who's going to believe you if you say this? I'll just say Sedona, Arizona, and other places. Um, the players, the Nazis. So my dad is working with reverse engineering the theoretical physics of Nazi scientists captured after World War II. And he came in the middle of this. And interesting, the work was done at Martin Marietta. Now it's Lockheed Martin. Surprise, surprise, right? And it was done in Colorado, which is why we moved there when I was a child. Um, in the last couple of years of life, he shared with me, and he told me, he said, he asked the Germans, he said, how'd you get so far ahead of us? And how did you not get the bomb? And I'll tell you this as an anecdote. Um, the Germans had all the elements to have a super bomb, way beyond what we had with the hydrogen. And a guy named Heisenberg did not want Hitler to have this. And he was the head of what they called the German Uranium Club, which was in charge of this research. And he kept telling Hitler, too expensive, it's too unreliable, we don't know the side effects. You're better off spending your military budget on conventional forces and going that way. And Hitler was pretty convinced, but he told him to continue on with his research, but he deliberately blocked it. In fact, there was a New York Yankees, oh gosh, I would blank on his name. He was a third string catcher for the Yankees, did work for the OSS, which was then the CIA, and he was sent to monitor Heisenberg. And if you really thought they were getting close to nuclear bomb, and he was posing as an aging graduate student, Mo Vaughn, and he was to kill him. And he said he felt that he was not on Hitler's side, so he spared his life. That actually showed up along with Heisenberg's sabotage of the German Uranium Club development of nuclear weapons. That showed up on a History Channel special, and it was there for a couple of years. I watched it twice on the archives, and now you can't get it. Interesting, isn't it? How you can't get it. So anyway, when we look at this, um, my dad's reversing this stuff, and he asked him, "Where'd you get the technology?" And they said, "Well, we got it from aliens." And he said, "Did you ever meet them?" "Well, no, but our commanders did." Well, my dad knew about their penchant for getting technology from occultic sources. They were doing that for a long time. I mean, Hitler attacked Russia based on the advice of, what was it, a lady that did seances. Yeah, pretty crazy. And that's actually what lost the war for him. He doesn't invade Russia. The World War II may have had a different outcome in Europe. Uh, so they were very much into occultic tech. Okay, now here's Tesla. Tesla's working on what? Zero point energy, the plasma field. Yeah, the very same thing that most of these missing and dead scientists were involved in. And what happened? I don't know if he met foul play, but he dies in his New York apartment in 1943, and the FBI shows up and still has his boxes of research. Tells you how far along he was. And then came Enron, and I've told this story where, Vance Davis and the late Bill Pollock. Vance was NSA, and we'll get to him in a minute. And Bill was former Intel. And Bill was an electronic scientific genius who had developed some zero point energy concepts. It attracted the attention of Enron. And I was in on some of these phone conversations, these conference calls. And Ken Lay was on a couple of them, the head of Enron, the guy that allegedly committed suicide, which I don't believe. It's kind of like an Epstein deal. In fact, he even said in one of our meetings, With what we're doing technologically, the government won't try to shut it down using the Invention Secrecy Act of 1951 because it'll draw too much attention. They're going to do something else, so we better have our dead man switches in place. He said that in a conference call. Boy, was he ever prophetic, because it wasn't 3 months later that all hell broke loose for Enron, a company that never had any violations of any law. Then all of a sudden they got 100. Yeah, kind of funny how that works, right? Um, so that was Ken Lay. Then we go to my friend Vance Davis, still in contact with him, still friends. Vance was in the NSA, assigned to NATO, and his task that led him to quit, along with six compadres, was to channel technology from occultic sources. No, we're not doing that. Big problem. H.W. Bush wanted to put him to death. Too much attention. They had to dismiss him, just let him out of the military entirely. Yeah, Vance was also in the U.S. Army at the same time. Interesting here. Vance actually, it's funny, he wrote a book. This is how far advanced he got with his research. He wrote a book in 1988 called Unbroken Promises. I think he's in the process of re-releasing it. And in that book, he talks about the melding of man and machine to create a super race. He said this is what he learned from German scientists they were working with, and they were working on this as far back as World War II. Isn't that interesting? No wonder the tech bros are interested. Hmm? All right. Now, there are links, and I'm going to develop this in another broadcast, but there are links to scientists who are dead missing. Plasma, energy fields, time dilation, anti-gravity that we see in UAPs, or what we call UFOs in layman's terms. That's part of this. I'll get back to this document I put together here. The central theme seems to be plasma, anti-gravity, and time distortion fields. I mentioned here about the Mandela effect in 2012, which has been traced to an electromagnetic experiment done in combination with electromagnetic changes that came from an eclipse. Interestingly, Trump owns a plasma-related research business worth $3 billion. dollars. I've done a report on that. Some of the people tried to say Trump had that laureate guy from MIT wiped out because he was into plasma research. True, true, but Trump would have no reason to do that. The guy's company was worth 6 billion, double Trump. But Trump, ex-president, he leaves. Who's going to get the government contracts, the no bids? It's going to be Trump because of influence. Not going to be some guy from MIT. So Trump had no motive to do this, but I'm not. But what I'm telling you is, it might have been someone in Trump's organization that said, well, we don't want any threat. We'll just take care of it just in case. And that's speculation on my part, but I'm convinced Donald Trump had nothing to do with that murder. Okay, continuing on. Here's my hypothesis. Satanic people, satanically inspired people, and their satanic entities want to cause a time dilation to avoid Judgment Day. So here comes Judgment Day. Jesus returns. Now you're going to face the lake of fire. And well, time dilation, they're gone. The event doesn't happen. This, I think, and this is speculation on my part, but I'm thinking, what makes sense? Because they know what's coming. They know at the end they're set up to lose. And I think this is their end game plan right here. Now, I'll leave you with this biblical quote here. The Bible tells us we don't fight against flesh and blood, but against principalities of darkness. But this is what makes the most sense to me, people. And I could go on and on with more detail here, but I think that's enough for now because brains are probably on overload. But the reality is we're in a spiritual war. And even if 10% of what I just told you is accurate, I mean, trust me, I know for a fact way more than 10%. About 90% is provable. We have a real problem. It's not about having the right political party, the right political beliefs. It's not a matter of voting for the right initiatives. It's a matter of getting people on the same wavelength. Now, for me, from my worldview, it's the Bible, Jesus Christ, and the resurrection, repentance, eternal life. That to me is the right path. But regardless, you can't fix a spiritual problem with physical manifestations. Doesn't mean we're not going to have World War III. We're already in the beginnings of World War III. We've covered that yesterday. But there's nothing to say we can't turn this back around. And if there's a shift in human consciousness, we can turn this around. We can fight against this in the physical plane to some degree. We can shut down the economy by refusing to deliver things and kill the supply chain, which I think is going to die a natural death here pretty quickly anyway, because of the oil crisis. But even if that wasn't the case, we could still shut things down. The Canadian truckers really taught us a good lesson. But that's only a temporary solution. The real solution means we have to transform ourselves from the inside out. And I'll tell you, the leaders that we have that go along to get along, and they may not know half of what's going on, but they know what they're doing is wrong. They know about the missing 21 trillion. They know a lot of things. And the thing I would say to you is stop blaming the leaders, because if we were better people, we would elect better leaders, because it would make sense to let people like Nancy Pelosi or certainly an Ilhan Omar stay in office. But because we're compromised, we accept compromised people. And this is the beginning of our problem. And these entities and their allies that run organizations like CERN, they would never get off the ground if we didn't turn a blind eye to what was happening. So to me, that is the answer. And I really have not much more to add to that. I am looking forward to your comments. And I'll just repeat the last phrase again. Our war is not with flesh and blood. It's against principalities of darkness. And from my part of the world, the principalities of darkness are there. And I should probably add a footnote here before we close. In 1997, in particular, there were a couple of astronauts that attended one of our think tank meetings with Bill Pollock. And they were explicit about the satanic evil that had penetrated organizations like NASA. That was their view. I had no idea verifying that. The one thing my dad said about NASA was the technology that they were reverse engineering on the theoretical physics board. He knew it went somewhere, and they were developing this for real, but it never showed up in NASA. He's telling me this stuff in 1984, 1985, and he said it never showed up in NASA. I said, well, when did you learn about it? He goes, early 60s. He said, never saw it. He said, still use the thruster rockets when I know we can do a lot more. Technology is withheld from you on every level, from life's conveniences to medical to military. Trump has even indicated to Iran, you keep messing with us, we're going to bring out the big stuff. And I don't think he's talking nukes. I think he's talking dues. I'm Dave Hodges. This is The Common Sense Show. Check out our TV show, thecommonsenseshow.tv, and we'll see you back here again next time.